My ex-wife tore my $5 million check into 4 pieces, smiled in front of everyone, and said, "You really expect me to believe you have that kind of money?" I stood there holding the empty checkbook, too tired to argue. My mother had less than 12 hours left before the doctors would stop trying to save her. And the woman who had once promised to stand beside me through everything was now laughing at me in front of a room full of strangers. "Daniel, look at yourself," Claire said, shaking her head. "You're wearing a 10-year-old jacket, your car barely starts, and you walk into a bank carrying a check for $5 million? A few people nearby turned toward us. I lowered my voice. "Claire, please. I'm not here to fight with you." "Then why are you here?" "To save my mother." That changed her expression for half a second. Then she laughed again. "Your mother?" I stared at her. Claire folded her arms. "You've been calling everyone for weeks, asking for money. You told people your mother needed some experimental treatment. Now suddenly you have $5 million? It's not suddenly. Then where did it come from?" I looked around the bank. The walls were covered with framed awards and photographs of smiling executives. People sat behind glass windows, quietly handling deposits and withdrawals. A security guard stood near the entrance, watching us. I could feel every eye in the lobby. I had never been good at public arguments. That was one reason Claire had always been able to control me. She knew I hated making a scene. She knew I would rather lose an argument than hurt someone I loved. And she knew exactly how to use that against me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "I have the transfer confirmation." "The money is real?" "I just need the cashier's check processed before the hospital's deadline." Claire stepped closer. "Show me." I handed her the phone. She looked at the screen. For a moment she said nothing. Then her eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" "I told you." "It's my money." "Your money?" "Yes." She handed the phone back like it had burned her. "You're lying." I swallowed hard. "Claire, I don't have time for this." "Oh, you have plenty of time. You always do when you're pretending to be something you're not." That sentence hurt more than I wanted to admit, because Claire had not always talked to me like this. 7 years earlier, she had been the woman who sat beside me in a cheap apartment and ate instant noodles with me when I was working 16-hour days. Back then I had promised her that one day I would build something better. I kept that promise. I just never told her how much better things had become. Not because I wanted to hide money from her. Because by the time I finally had money, Claire had already decided she didn't want me anymore. Our divorce had been ugly. She told everyone I had failed. She told our friends. I had wasted years chasing a business that never became anything. She took the house. She took most of the savings. She even told my mother that I was the reason our family had fallen apart. I never corrected her. I thought silence was cheaper than another fight. I was wrong. Claire looked at the torn pieces of the check in her hand. Then she dropped them onto the counter. "You know what I think?" I said nothing. "I think you found some fake check online. Maybe you printed it yourself. Maybe you're trying to scare someone into giving you money." My face went cold. "That check came from the bank." "Then let them prove it." I turned toward the teller. "Ma'am, can you please verify the account?" The teller looked uncomfortable. She picked up one of the torn pieces. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't verify anything from a destroyed check." Claire smiled. "Exactly." I looked at her. "Why are you doing this?" Her smile disappeared. "Because I'm tired of watching you lie." "I'm not lying." "You told me you had nothing." "I did." "Then how do you have $5 million now?" I stared at her. There it was. The question I had been expecting. The question I had been hoping I would never have to answer. I glanced at the torn check. "Because I worked for it." Claire actually laughed. "You?" That one word crushed something inside me. Not because I was ashamed of my life. Because I remembered every night I had come home exhausted while she slept. Every weekend I had spent building my company, while she complained that I wasn't taking her anywhere. Every time I had said, "Just give me another year," and every time she had answered, "I'm done waiting." I looked at her and said quietly, "You have no idea what I sacrificed." "No, Daniel. I know exactly what you sacrificed." She leaned toward me. "You sacrificed your marriage because you wanted to play businessman." My hands tightened. The teller looked between us. "Sir, if you have another form of payment." "I do." Claire immediately turned. "What?" I pulled another envelope from inside my jacket. Her eyes went straight to it. "What's that?" "Something I was going to use if this didn't work." She reached for it. I pulled it back. "Don't." For the first time that morning, Claire looked nervous. "What is in there?" I didn't answer. The truth was, I hadn't planned on showing her anything. Not today. Not ever. The envelope contained documents I had spent years keeping away from everyone. Documents Claire had never seen. Documents that explained where my money really came from. But my mother was dying and I had already wasted too much time. I turned back toward the teller. "Can you contact your branch manager?" The teller nodded. Before she could pick up the phone, Claire grabbed my arm. "Daniel, stop." I pulled away. "Let go of me." Her voice dropped. "If you really have $5 million, then give me proof." I stared at her. "Why?" "Because I know you. You don't have that kind of money." I almost smiled. There was a time when hearing her say that would have made me desperate to prove myself. Today, it only made me tired. "You know who I was?" I said. "You don't know who I became." Claire's face hardened. "Don't talk like you're some powerful man. You're still the same loser who begged me not to leave." The words landed hard. I looked down. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Because she was right about one thing. I had begged. Not because I needed Claire. Because I thought losing her meant I had failed at everything. I thought if I worked harder, apologized more, and gave her everything she wanted, she would finally see the man I was trying to become. She never did. And maybe that was the greatest mistake I had ever made. I slowly raised my eyes. "You're right." Claire blinked. "What?" "I begged you." Her expression changed. "You remember that night?" "Every second." "Then you remember why I left?" I nodded. "I remember." She smiled like she had won. "Good. But you don't remember what happened 3 days later." Her smile faded. Claire stared at me. "What happened?" I didn't answer. Because before I could, a side door opened behind the bank counter. A tall man in a dark suit hurried into the lobby. The branch manager. He wasn't looking at Claire. He wasn't looking at the torn check. He was looking directly at me. And the strange thing was, he looked scared. He walked past the teller, past Claire, and stopped less than 2 feet from me. Then he straightened his jacket. "Mr. Carter?" I nodded. The manager glanced at the torn pieces of the check. His face changed. "Who did this?" Claire immediately stepped forward. "I did." The manager looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, do you understand what you just destroyed?" Claire rolled her eyes. "A fake check?" The manager didn't smile. "No." The entire lobby seemed to go quiet. He picked up one of the torn pieces. His fingers were shaking. This was not a normal check. Claire's confidence started to disappear. "What does that mean?" The manager looked at me again, and then he said something that made Claire's face go completely pale. "Mr. Carter, your private banking officer has been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. We need to know whether you still want the $5 million transfer processed." He paused. "Or whether you want us to freeze the account connected to your ex-wife." Claire stopped breathing. I looked at her. She looked at me. And for the first time since I had walked into that bank, she wasn't looking at the broken check anymore. She was looking at me like she had just realized she never knew her ex-husband at all. But she still didn't know the worst part. The $5 million wasn't even the reason the bank manager had come running. 90 seconds later, another man would walk through that same door. And when he called me sir, Claire would finally learn exactly who she had spent years calling a loser.